Captain Jake Morrison stood at the large window of the diplomatic ship Harmony's Edge, watching the alien vessel approach through the stars. The ship looked nothing like human designs. It was round and smooth, with no sharp edges or weapons visible. It moved slowly and carefully, like a nervous animal testing the water before drinking. "They're here," said Dr. Lisa Chow, walking up beside him. She carried a tablet full of notes about the alien species they were about to meet. The Zephyrian Alliance. 6 different species working together. This is the biggest moment in human history. Jake nodded but kept his eyes on the alien ship. "Are you ready for this?" First official contact with an alien civilization. "As ready as anyone can be," Lisa replied. "Though I have to admit I'm curious about their food. The reports say they have some interesting dietary habits." Commander Ryan Brooks entered the observation deck, his security uniform crisp and clean. "Captain, the aliens are requesting permission to board. They want to hold a welcome ceremony on our ship." "That's unusual," Jake said. "Most first contact protocols suggest neutral ground." "They insisted," Ryan said. "Something about their ship being too dangerous for us. They wouldn't explain what they meant." Jake shrugged. "Grant them permission. Have Chef Tony prepare the welcome feast. Nothing too exotic, just good human food." An hour later, the airlock opened with a soft hiss. The first alien to step through was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. It wore flowing robes that covered most of its body. "I am Ambassador Crickstall," the alien said in perfect English, though its voice had a musical quality that made it sound like singing. "I speak for the Zephyrian Alliance. We are honored to meet the humans." Behind Crickstall came 5 other aliens, each from a different species. One looked like a large insect with wings folded against its back. Another was short and covered in what looked like soft fur. A third had scales that changed color as Jake watched. The fourth moved on several legs and had eyes on stalks. The last one was the strangest of all, looking like it was made of living liquid that held the shape of a person. "Welcome aboard the Harmony's Edge," Jake said, stepping forward. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison. This is Dr. Lisa Chang, our science officer, and Commander Ryan Brooks, our security chief." The aliens all made small bowing movements. Jake noticed they stayed close together, as if they were afraid of something. "We have prepared a feast to celebrate our meeting," Jake continued. "Would you like to see your quarters first, or shall we go directly to the dining hall?" The aliens exchanged glances. Crickstall spoke again. "We would be honored to share food with you. This is a great moment for both our peoples." The dining hall had been decorated with flags from both human nations and the Zephyrian Alliance. Long tables were covered with white cloth and set with the best dishes the ship had. The smell of cooking food filled the air. Chef Tony Martinez had outdone himself. The tables were loaded with examples of human cuisine from around Earth. There was roasted beef from Texas, fresh seafood from Maine, pasta from Italy, rice dishes from Asia, and dozens of other foods that represented the best of human cooking. The aliens sat down carefully, still staying close together. Jake noticed they kept looking around the room as if they expected something dangerous to appear. "Please, try anything you like," Jake said, gesturing to the food. "We brought examples of cuisine from all over Earth." Dr. Chang sat down across from Crickstall. "I'm very interested in learning about your people. The reports we received were limited." "What would you like to know?" Crickstall asked, but Jake noticed the alien was staring at the roasted beef with what looked like fear. "Well, for starters, what do your people eat?" The question seemed to make all the aliens uncomfortable. They shifted in their seats and looked at each other again. "We eat plants?" said the insect-like alien in a voice that sounded like clicking. "Only plants. We grow them in safe places." "Safe places?" Lisa asked. "Places where the predators cannot reach," Crickstall explained. "We have learned to hide our food sources well." Ryan looked puzzled. "Predators? You mean like animals that hunt other animals?" "Not animals," said the furry alien, its voice shaking slightly. Monsters, creatures that exist only to kill and destroy. Jake leaned forward, interested. Could you tell us more about these creatures? Crickstall pressed a button on a small device, and a holographic image appeared above the table. It showed a massive creature with tentacles, sharp teeth, and eyes that glowed in the dark. The thing was the size of a building and looked like it could tear apart a spaceship with its bare claws. This is a void stalker, Crickstall said. They live on the planet Kepler 442b. They have destroyed 17 of our colonies. Each one is a killing machine that cannot be stopped. The humans looked at the image with interest. Lisa pulled out her tablet and started taking notes. Fascinating. It looks similar to some species we have on Earth. Similar? The scaled aliens. Colors flashed bright red. You have creatures like this on your world? Well, not exactly like this, Lisa said. But we have some large predators. Sharks, bears, big cats. Nothing quite this size, though. How do you survive? Asked the alien with eye stalks. Jake smiled. We learn to fight back. Humans have been dealing with dangerous animals for thousands of years. Fight back? Crickstall's voice rose higher. You fight the apex predators of your world? Sure, Ryan said, cutting into his steak. Sometimes we hunt them, sometimes we just avoid them. Depends on the situation. The liquid alien seemed to tremble. You hunt apex predators? Some of them, Jake said. Others we've learned to live with. We even keep some as pets. Pets? The word came out as a whisper from several aliens at once. Chef Tony chose that moment to bring out the main course. Fresh salmon from the Pacific Ocean, he announced proudly. Caught just before we left Earth. He set down a large platter with perfectly cooked fish, still steaming from the kitchen. The salmon was garnished with lemon and herbs, and it smelled wonderful. The aliens stared at the fish in horror. You eat predators? Crickstall asked, his voice barely audible. Well, salmon aren't really predators, Lisa said. They're more like... Well, they do eat other fish, so I guess they are predators in a way. This is a predator fish, Tony said cheerfully. They swim upstream to spawn, fighting against the current. Very strong, very determined, makes the meat taste great. The furry alien made a noise that sounded like whimpering. You eat the strong ones? We eat lots of different things, Jake said, starting to realize the aliens were upset. Plants, animals, fish, birds. Humans are what we call omnivores. We eat everything. Everything? The insect alien's wings buzzed nervously. Pretty much, Ryan said, though we try to avoid the really dangerous stuff unless we know how to prepare it safely. The aliens all stood up at once, moving toward the door. Wait, Jake said, standing as well. Did we say something wrong? Crickstall turned back, his large eyes wide with what Jake was beginning to recognize as fear. You are predators. Your entire species are apex predators. I guess you could say that, Jake said, though we prefer to think of ourselves as adaptable. You eat other predators, the scaled alien said, its colors flashing rapidly between red and purple. You hunt the hunters. Sometimes, Lisa said, but we also grow crops and raise livestock. We're not just hunters. The liquid alien spoke for the first time, its voice like water flowing over rocks. On our worlds, the predators eat everything. They cannot be stopped. They cannot be reasoned with. They exist only to kill. And you eat them, Crickstall said. Staring at the salmon on the table, the room fell silent. The humans looked at each other, beginning to understand that they had just revealed something about themselves that terrified their new alien friends. Perhaps, Crickstall said slowly, we should continue this discussion tomorrow. We need time to process this information. The aliens left the dining hall quickly, staying close together and looking over their shoulders as they went. Jake, Lisa, and Ryan sat back down at the table, surrounded by untouched food. Well, Jake said finally, that went better than I expected. Better? Lisa asked. They didn't run away screaming, Ryan pointed out. Give them time, Jake said, looking at the salmon. I have a feeling they're going to find out there's a lot more to humans than just eating fish. 3 weeks had passed since the first meeting with the Zephyrian Alliance. The humans had tried their best to make the aliens comfortable, but things remained tense. The aliens stayed in their quarters most of the time, only coming out for meetings. When they did appear, they watched the humans with nervous eyes, as if waiting for them to do something terrible. Captain Jake Morrison was reading reports in his office when the emergency alarm started blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the ship, and the sound echoed off the metal walls. Jake jumped up from his desk and ran to the bridge. "What's happening?" he asked as he entered the command center. Communications Officer Kate Johnson looked up from her station, her face pale. "Captain, we're getting a distress signal from the Zephyrian mining operation on Teton 7. They're under attack." "Attack? By who?" Jake asked, taking a seat in the captain's chair. "Not who, sir, what?" Kate's fingers moved quickly over her controls. "They're reporting Void Stalker activity. Multiple creatures. The miners are trapped underground." Dr. Lisa Shang entered the bridge, having heard the alarm. "Did you say Void Stalkers?" "Those are the creatures the aliens showed us in the hologram." "The same ones," Kate confirmed. "The miners sent a message saying they're trapped in the lower levels of the mining facility. The Void Stalkers are between them and the surface." Jake pressed a button on his chair. "Get me Ambassador Krickstahl now." Within minutes, the alien ambassador appeared on the main screen. His blue skin looked even paler than usual, and his large eyes were filled with fear. "Captain Morrison," Krickstahl said, his musical voice shaking, "you have heard about Titan 7? "We have. How many people are trapped down there?" 47 miners from 3 different species. They have food and water for maybe 5 days, but the Void Stalkers—" Krickstahl's voice trailed off. "What about the Void Stalkers?" Jake asked. "They do not leave. Once they find prey, they wait. They can wait for months if necessary. The miners will die down there." Commander Ryan Brooks stepped forward. "What about a rescue mission? Surely your military has ships that could help." Krickstahl's image flickered as he shook his head. "We have tried rescue missions before. 17 different attempts on 7 different worlds. Every rescue ship has been destroyed. The Void Stalkers are impossible to defeat." "Impossible?" Lisa asked. "There must be some way to fight them. Dr. Chang, these creatures are pure death. They have armor that cannot be pierced by our weapons. Their blood is acid that melts through metal. They have tentacles that can crush. A starship, nothing we have can stop them." Jake stood up from his chair. "Ambassador, we'd like to volunteer for the rescue mission." The bridge fell silent. Even the humans stared at their captain in surprise. "Captain," Krickstahl said slowly, "I do not think you understand. These are not the small predators from your world. A single Void Stalker is the size of your ship. They are the apex predators of the galaxy." "We understand," Jake said, "but we can't just leave those people to die. Captain Morrison, please listen to me. 47 beings will die if we do nothing. But if you go to Titan 7, 47 beings and all of your crew will die. The mathematics are simple." Ryan stepped up beside Jake. "Ambassador, with respect, we've dealt with dangerous creatures before. We might have some ideas that haven't been tried yet." Krickstahl's image shimmered as he turned to speak to someone off-screen. Jake could hear other alien voices, all of them sounding upset and frightened. "Captain," Krickstahl said when he turned back, "the Alliance Council is meeting now. They are voting on whether to allow you to attempt this rescue." "Allow us?" Jake raised an eyebrow. "Ambassador, we don't need permission to help people in danger." "You do not understand. If you go to Titan 7, you will die. The Council does not want your deaths on their conscience." Dr. Chang moved to her station and started pulling up information about Titan 7. "Captain, I'm reading the planets. Data now, it's a mining world, mostly underground facilities. Rocky surface, thin atmosphere. The mining operation goes down about 2 kilometers. What about the Void Stalkers?" Jake asked. "What do we know about them?" Lisa scrolled through the information. According to Zephyrian records, they're massive cephalopods. 8 to 12 tentacles, each one about 50 meters long. They have a hard shell covering their main body. They hunt by sensing vibrations through the ground. Cephalopods? Ryan asked. Like squid and octopus? Apparently. Just much, much larger. Chef Tony Martinez entered the bridge, wiping his hands on his apron. Captain, I heard the alarm. What's going on? We might be going on a rescue mission, Tony. There are people trapped by some very large predators. Tony nodded. How large are we talking? Building-sized squid with acid blood, Lisa said without looking up from her screen. Squid? Tony's eyes lit up. I haven't cooked squid in months. Do you think they taste like the ones from Earth? The bridge fell silent again. Everyone stared at the chef. Tony, Jake said carefully. These aren't regular squid. They're deadly predators. So are the squid back home, Captain. Just smaller. You should see what a giant Pacific octopus can do to a crab. Kate's station beeped. Captain, Ambassador Crickstall is calling back. The alien's image appeared on the screen again. This time, several other aliens were visible behind him, all looking nervous. Captain Morrison, Crickstall said, the Council has voted. They will allow you to attempt the rescue, but they want you to know that they consider it a suicide mission. Understood, Jake said. We'll leave immediately. Captain, wait, there is something else. The Council has been monitoring your communications, Jake frowned. Monitoring our communications? Your food preparation specialist just asked if the void stalkers taste like earth squid. That's right, Jake said. Is there a problem with that? The aliens behind Crickstall started making noises that sounded like panic. One of them, the insect-like creature from their first meeting, moved closer. To the screen. You are thinking of eating them? It asked, its voice clicking rapidly. Well, Jake said, we haven't really thought about it yet. We're focused on the rescue mission. But if the opportunity arose? Crickstall asked. Tony stepped forward. Ambassador, where I come from, we have a saying. If it swims, flies, or crawls, it probably tastes good with the right seasoning. The Alien Council erupted in what could only be described as controlled chaos. Jake could hear voices in different languages, all of them sounding upset. Captain, Crickstall said when the noise died down, the Council would like to know if you are serious about this. About the rescue mission? Absolutely. No, Captain. About eating the void stalkers. Jake looked around the bridge at his crew. Lisa was reading data about the creature's biology. Ryan was planning the mission. Tony was already making notes about cooking techniques. Kate was preparing the ship for departure. Ambassador, Jake said finally, we're serious about helping people. Everything else is just details. The screen went blank. A moment later, Kate's station beeped again. Captain, I'm picking up transmissions from the Zephyrian fleet. They're not encrypted. What are they saying? Kate listened for a moment, then looked up with a strange expression. Sir, they're taking bets on how long we'll survive on Titan 7. The odds are not in our favor. What's the current spread? Ryan asked. Most of them think we'll last less than an hour. A few optimists are betting on 2 hours, Jake smiled. Kate, send a message to the Zephyrian fleet. Tell them we accept their bets, but we want to add our own wager. What kind of wager, sir? Tell them we bet that not only will we rescue the miners, but we'll also be serving calamari in the ship's dining hall tomorrow night. Kate's fingers froze over her controls. Sir, did you just bet the aliens that we're going to eat their most feared predator? That's exactly what I did. Now let's get to Titan 7. We have people to rescue and dinner to catch. As the Harmony's Edge changed course toward Titan 7, the Zephyrian fleet followed at a safe distance. Jake could imagine the aliens watching. Their sensors, waiting to see the moment when the human ship would be destroyed by the terrible void. Stalkers. What they didn't know was that humans had been dealing with monsters for thousands of years. The only difference was that this time the monster was big enough to feed the whole crew. Dr. Chang looked up from her research. Captain, I've been studying the void stalker biology. They're actually quite similar to cephalopods. Same. Basic body structure, just scaled up. Good to know. Anything else? Well, their shell is calcium carbonate, just like earth mollusks, and their muscle tissue appears to be very high in protein. Tony nodded approvingly. Sounds delicious. I'll start planning the menu. Jake looked out at the stars ahead of them, toward Titan 7 and the deadly predators waiting there. Behind them, the Zephyrian fleet followed. Convinced they were about to witness the end of humanity's first contact mission, he smiled. They were about to learn something very important. About humans. When faced with a monster, most species run away. Humans, on the other hand, start looking for recipes. The Harmony's edge dropped out of hyperspace near Titan 7. The planet looked like a gray rock floating in the darkness, with no signs of life on its surface. Deep underground, 47 miners waited for rescue, trapped by creatures that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the planet grow larger on the main screen. Kate, any word from the mining facility? Communications Officer Kate Johnson checked her instruments. Last transmission was 6 hours ago, Captain. They're still alive, but running low on power. The Void Stalkers are moving closer to their position. Dr. Lisa Chang looked up from her station. Captain, I'm reading massive life signs near the mining complex, at least 4 large creatures, maybe more. How large? Commander Ryan Brooks asked. Each one is about the size of a city block. They're moving slowly, but they're definitely surrounding the facility. Jake nodded. Ryan, get your team ready. We're going down there. Yes, sir. What's the plan? Simple. We land, we get the miners, and we deal with whatever tries to stop us. Tony Martinez entered the bridge, carrying a large bag of equipment. Captain, I brought some extra supplies, just in case we run into those squid things. Tony, that's not cooking equipment, is it? Some of it, but I also brought my good knives. You never know when you might need to butcher something fresh. Lisa stared at the chef. Tony, we're going on a rescue mission, not a hunting trip. Why can't it be both? Tony asked with a smile. The landing shuttle bay area dropped through Titan 7's thin atmosphere. Jake piloted the craft himself, with Ryan, Lisa, Tony, and 6 security officers in the passenger compartment. The shuttle's sensors showed the mining facility ahead, a collection of buildings built around a large hole in the ground. There, Lisa pointed at her scanner. I'm reading life signs in the lower levels. The miners are about 2 kilometers down. What about the Void Stalkers? Ryan asked. All around us. They're big, Captain. Really big. The shuttle touched down on the rocky surface near the mining facility. Jake looked out the window at the gray landscape. I don't see any monsters. They're underground, Lisa said. The tunnels connect to the mine shafts. That's how they got to the miners. The team left the shuttle and walked toward the main building. Their boots crunched on the rocky ground, and their breath formed clouds in the cold air. The mining facility looked abandoned, with dark windows and no signs of life. Creepy place, said Sergeant Billy Cooper, one of the security officers. Reminds me of those old horror movies. Stay alert, Ryan warned. We don't know where those creatures are. They entered the main building and found the elevator that led down to the mine. The power was still working, but the lights flickered as they descended into the darkness. The elevator went down and down, past level after level of tunnels and chambers. 2 kilometers is a long way down, Tony said, watching the level numbers change. Good thing we brought rope, Ryan replied. The elevator stopped at the bottom level. The doors opened to reveal a dark corridor carved out of rock. Emergency lights cast red shadows on the walls, and the air smelled of metal and fear. This way, Lisa said, checking her scanner. The miners are in the emergency shelter about 500 meters ahead. They walked through the tunnel, their footsteps echoing in the darkness. Jake noticed that the walls were covered with strange marks, like scratches made by something with very large claws. Those are fresh, Ryan said, pointing at the marks. Very fresh, Lisa agreed. Whatever made them was here recently. They had walked about halfway to the emergency shelter when the ground started to shake. Dust fell from the ceiling and the lights flickered more violently. What was that? Billy asked. I think we're about to find out, Jake said. The shaking got stronger. Something was moving through the tunnels, something very large. The sound grew louder, like a freight train coming their way. There, Lisa pointed ahead. The tunnel curves to the right. The miners are just around that corner. They ran toward the curve, but before they could reach it, the wall exploded. Rock and dust filled the air as something massive burst through the solid stone. A tentacle as thick as a tree trunk shot out of the hole, followed by another, then another. "Void Stalker!" Ryan shouted, raising his plasma rifle. The creature pulled itself through the hole it had made. It was even bigger than the hologram had shown. Its body was the size of a house, covered in dark armor that looked like it could stop anything. 8 massive tentacles writhed around it, each one longer than the shuttle they had flown down in. Its eyes were the size of dinner plates, glowing with a cold, hungry light. The creature looked at the humans and let out a roar that shook the entire tunnel. Rocks fell from the ceiling, and the emergency lights went out completely. "Well," Billy said in the darkness, "that's the biggest squid I've ever seen." "It's not a squid," Lisa said. "It's a cephalopod, but the classification is completely different." "Does it matter?" Ryan asked. "Not really." "Tony, you still want to cook this thing?" Tony stepped forward, pulling out his largest knife. "Looks like calamari's back on the menu, boys." The Void Stalker charged at them, its tentacles reaching out to grab the humans. Jake and his team scattered, diving behind rocks and mining equipment. The creature's tentacles smashed into the tunnel walls, sending more rocks flying. "Ryan, can your weapons hurt this thing?" Jake called out. "Let's find out," Ryan replied. He aimed his plasma rifle at the creature's main body and fired. The bright energy beam hit the Void Stalker's armor and bounced off, leaving only a small scorch mark. "That's not good," Billy said. "Try the tentacles," Lisa suggested. "They're not as heavily armored." Ryan aimed at one of the writhing tentacles and fired again. This time, the plasma beam cut through the creature's flesh, causing it to roar in pain and anger. "That worked," Jake said. "Everyone, aim for the tentacles." The security team opened fire, their plasma rifles lighting up the tunnel. The Void Stalker thrashed around, trying to reach them with its remaining tentacles, but the humans were faster and smarter. They had been hunting dangerous creatures for thousands of years, and they knew how to work as a team. "It's just a big animal," Ryan said, dodging a tentacle that tried to grab him. "Dangerous, but still just an animal." "A very large animal," Lisa added, taking careful aim with her pistol. Tony ran forward with his knife, staying low to avoid the creature's attacks. "The meat looks good," he called out, "nice and firm. This is going to be delicious." "Tony, what are you doing?" Jake yelled. "Getting dinner," Tony replied. He reached one of the severed tentacles and started cutting off pieces. "Look at this muscle structure, it's beautiful." The Void Stalker was getting weaker. Half of its tentacles were gone, and green blood was flowing from its wounds. It tried to retreat back through the hole it had made, but Ryan and his team kept firing. "Don't let it escape," Jake ordered. "If it gets away, it might come back with friends." The creature made one last desperate attack, lunging forward with its remaining tentacles. But Jake was ready. He rolled to the side and came up with his sidearm, firing directly into one of the creature's glowing eyes. The Void Stalker let out a final roar and collapsed, its massive body hitting the tunnel floor with a crash that shook the entire mine. "Is it dead?" Billy asked. Lisa walked over to check. "Very dead. Heart has stopped, brain activity is 0. "Good," Jake said. "Now let's get those miners." They found the emergency shelter just around the corner. 47 aliens were huddled inside, all of them looking terrified. They were from 3 different species, but they all had the same expression of fear and hopelessness. "Help has arrived," Jake announced as they opened the shelter door. The aliens stared at the humans in disbelief. "You're alive," one of them whispered. "Of course we're alive," Ryan said. "Why wouldn't we be?" "The Void Stalker, we heard it roaring. We thought it had killed you. It tried," Jake said. "But we had other plans." Lisa started checking the miners for injuries while Jake and Ryan organized the evacuation. The aliens kept asking questions about the Void Stalker, unable to believe that it was actually dead. "How did you kill it?" asked a furry alien with large ears. "Teamwork," Ryan said, "and good aim. But it's a Void Stalker. They can't be killed. Everything can be killed," Jake said. You just have to know how. Tony was busy with the dead creature, cutting off the best pieces of meat. This is going to feed the whole crew, he said happily. Maybe even the aliens if they want to try it. The miners watched in horror as the human chef butchered their most feared predator. He's cutting it up, one of them said. He's going to eat it, said another. Of course he is, Lisa said. Tony's our chef, it's what he does. As they prepared to leave the mine, Jake noticed that the aliens were no longer afraid of the humans. Instead, they looked at them with something that might have been awe. Captain, one of the miners said, what are you? Jake smiled. We're humans. We're from Earth, and we're very glad we could help. The trip back to the surface was quiet. The miners rode in the elevator, still staring at the humans who had done the impossible. Tony carried a bag full of void stalker meat, already planning the evening's menu. When they reached the shuttle, Jake sent a message to the Zephyrian fleet waiting in orbit. This is Captain Morrison. Mission accomplished. All miners rescued. No human casualties. News of the Void Stalker hunt spread through the Zephyrian Alliance faster than light-speed communication. Within hours of the rescue mission, every alien ship in the fleet was buzzing with reports that the humans had not only survived their encounter with the galaxy's most feared predators, but had actually killed them and were planning to eat them for dinner. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the dining hall of the Harmony's Edge, watching Chef Tony Martinez put the finishing touches on what might be the most important meal in galactic history. The tables were set with the ship's finest china, and the smell of cooking Void Stalker filled the air. It smells like lobster, Dr. Lisa Shang said, walking into the dining hall with her tablet full of research notes. That's what I was going for, Tony replied, stirring a large pot of sauce. The meat has a similar texture to Earth shellfish, so I'm using a classic butter and garlic preparation. Have you figured out the nutritional value yet? Jake asked Lisa. It's incredible, Lisa said, checking her notes. The protein content is through the roof. High in minerals, low in fat. This creature could feed a small colony for months. Commander Ryan Brooks entered the dining hall, followed by the rescued miners. The 47 aliens looked around nervously, still not quite believing they were safe. The Zephyrian fleet is requesting permission to send observers, Ryan reported. They want to see this dinner for themselves. How many observers? Jake asked. All of them. Every ship in the fleet wants to send someone. Jake smiled. Tell them. They're welcome. We have plenty of food. Over the next hour, shuttles began arriving from the Zephyrian fleet. Aliens from 6 different species filed into the dining hall, all of them staring at the tables with expressions of shock and disbelief. Ambassador Crickstall was among the first to arrive. His pale blue skin had turned almost white, and his large eyes kept darting between the humans and the food. Captain Morrison, Crickstall said, his musical voice shaking. Is it true? Did you really kill 4 Void Stalkers? 3, actually, Jake corrected. Though there might have been more in the area. We only encountered the ones that were directly threatening the miners. And you're going to eat them? We already started, Tony said cheerfully, bringing out a plate of appetizers. Void Stalker rings, lightly breaded and fried. Try one. The aliens all stepped back as if the plate contained poison. It's perfectly safe, Lisa said. I've run complete biological tests. The meat is not only edible, it's quite nutritious. 1. Of the rescued miners, a furry creature with large ears spoke up. They saved our lives. They walked into a tunnel with 3 Void Stalkers and came out carrying dinner. How? Asked an insect-like alien from the fleet. How is this possible? Jake looked around the room at all the frightened faces. Maybe it would help if we explained how humans deal with predators on our own world. Please, Crickstall said. We need to understand, Jake gestured for everyone to sit down. The aliens took seats at the tables, though they stayed as far from the food as possible. On Earth, Jake began, humans have always shared our planet with dangerous creatures. Bears that can tear apart trees with their claws. Sharks that can bite through steel. Big cats that can hunt in complete darkness. How did you survive? Asked one of the fleet aliens. We learned to fight back, Ryan said. At first, we used spears and arrows. Later, we developed better weapons. But the important thing was that we never stopped trying. You fought apex predators. With primitive weapons? The insect alien's wings buzzed nervously. For thousands of years, Lisa confirmed. But here's the interesting part. We didn't just fight them. We studied them. We learned how they hunted, how they moved, what their weaknesses were. Tony brought out the main course, perfectly cooked void-stalker steaks, each one the size of a dinner plate. The meat was golden brown on the outside and pink in the middle, garnished with herbs and vegetables. And then, Tony said, setting down the platters, we learned to cook them. The aliens stared at the steaks in horror. One of them, a scaled creature whose colors kept changing, spoke in a whisper. You turned apex predators into food, some of them, Jake said. Others we learned to live with. We even made pets out of some species that used to hunt us. Pets? Crickstall asked. Dogs, Ryan explained. They used to be wolves. Thousands of years ago, wolves were one of our main predators. Now they live in our houses and play with our children. You domesticated your predators? The ones we could. The ones we couldn't, we either avoided or learned to hunt safely. Lisa pulled up a holographic display showing various earth animals. Sharks, for example, very dangerous in the water. But we developed techniques for swimming safely around them. Some humans even swim with sharks for fun. For fun? The scaled alien's colors flashed bright red. Sport diving, Lisa explained. Humans pay money to get in the water with sharks. The room fell silent. The aliens looked at each other with expressions of complete bewilderment. Let me get this straight, said a liquid alien whose body rippled when it spoke. You swim with predators for entertainment? Some of us do, Jake said. Others prefer hunting them. And some, like Tony, prefer cooking them. Tony cut into one of the void stalker steaks, revealing the tender meat inside. The key is proper preparation. You want to cook it just enough to break down the tough fibers, but not so much that it gets rubbery. He took a bite and smiled. Perfect. Tastes like a cross between lobster and chicken. The aliens watched in fascination and horror as the humans began eating. Jake cut off a piece of his steak and chewed thoughtfully. Not bad, he said. Though I think it could use a little more seasoning. I was thinking the same thing, Ryan. Agreed. Maybe some of that spice blend from Rigel 7. Dr. Chang was taking notes while she ate. The texture is excellent. Much more tender than I expected from such a large creature. One of the rescued miners, a small alien with 6 arms, finally spoke up. Are all humans like this? Like what? Jake asked. Fearless. You walked into certain death and came out planning dinner. Jake laughed. We're not fearless. We were definitely scared down in those tunnels, but fear isn't necessarily a bad thing. It keeps you alert, makes you careful. Then how did you defeat creatures that have terrorized the galaxy for centuries? Lisa looked up from her notes. Experience. Humans have been hunting large, dangerous predators for our entire existence. We know how to work as a team, how to use weapons effectively, how to find weak spots. But these were void stalkers, protested the insect alien. The apex predators of the galaxy. Every predator has weaknesses, Ryan said. The void stalkers were big and strong, but they were also slow and clumsy. Their armor protected their main body, but their tentacles were vulnerable. Plus, Tony added, they tasted great. Ambassador Crickstall had been quiet through most of the meal, but now he stood up. Captain Morrison, I need to ask you something important. Of course. Are there other creatures on your world like the void stalkers? Jake thought for a moment. Well, we don't have anything quite that big. But we do have some impressive predators. Great white sharks, grizzly bears, saltwater crocodiles. And you eat those too? When we can catch them safely, yes. Crickstall turned to address the other. Aliens in the room, do you understand what this means? These humans come from a world where apex predators are common. They have spent their entire evolutionary history learning to hunt the hunters. The room erupted in excited chatter. Aliens from different species talked rapidly in their own languages, all of them sounding amazed and frightened at the same time. There's, something else, Lisa said, standing up with her tablet. I've been analyzing the Voidstalker biology, and I've discovered something interesting. The room fell quiet again. These creatures are actually not that different from Earth cephalopods. They're just scaled up. With the right techniques, they could probably be domesticated. Domesticated? Crickstall's voice went up several octaves. Sure, we've domesticated much more dangerous animals on Earth. These Voidstalkers are actually quite intelligent. With proper training, they might even make good working animals. The aliens stared at her in complete shock. You want to turn Voidstalkers into livestock? The liquid alien asked. Why not? Lisa shrugged. They're an excellent source of protein. Fast-growing, efficient feeders. With proper management, they could solve the food shortage problems that several Alliance worlds are experiencing. Tony nodded enthusiastically. I could develop a whole line of Voidstalker recipes. Steaks, soup, barbecue. The possibilities are endless. Jake looked around the room at the stunned faces of their alien guests. Would the Alliance be interested in learning human hunting and farming techniques? Crickstall sat down heavily in his chair. Captain Morrison, I think we need to have a very long conversation about your species. We have time, Jake said, cutting another piece of his steak. But first, why don't you try the food? Tony worked very hard on this meal. Crickstall looked at the plate in front of him, then at the humans eating calmly around the table. Slowly, carefully, he picked up his fork and cut off a small piece of the Voidstalker steak. He put it in his mouth, chewed and swallowed. It's delicious, he said, sounding surprised. Of course it is, Tony said proudly. Everything tastes good with the right preparation. As the evening went on, more and more aliens tried the food. 6 months had passed since the dinner that changed the galaxy. The news of humans eating Voidstalkers had spread to every corner of known space, and the reactions were exactly what Captain Jake Morrison had expected. Some species were terrified. Others were amazed, and a few were very interested in learning more. Jake stood in his new office on Space Station New Geneva, looking out at the busy traffic of ships coming and going. Human vessels mixed with alien craft from dozens of different species, all of them part of what the media was calling the Predator Alliance. Dr. Lisa Chang entered the office, carrying a stack of reports and wearing a big smile. Jake, you need to see these numbers. Good news? Jake asked, turning away from the window. Better than good. The Voidstalker farming program on Kepler 442b is exceeding all expectations. The creatures are breeding faster than we thought, and the meat quality is excellent. Jake sat down at his desk and looked at the reports. How many planets are interested in starting their own programs? 37 so far. The Zephyrian Alliance worlds are leading the way, but we're getting requests from species we've never even met before. It was true. Word had spread that humans could tame the galaxy's most dangerous predators and turn them into food sources. Planets that had been abandoned because of monster problems were suddenly asking for human help. Commander Ryan Brooks walked in, followed by Ambassador Crickstall. The alien diplomat had changed a lot in the past 6 months. He no longer looked nervous around humans, and he had even gained some weight from trying all of Tony's new recipes. Captain Morrison, Crickstall said, we have received another request for assistance. What kind of assistance? Jake asked. The Andromedan sector. They have a problem with creatures they call star worms, massive serpent-like beasts that destroy entire space stations. Ryan pulled up a holographic display showing the creatures. They were enormous, snake-like animals that could grow to be several kilometers long. Their scales shimmered like metal, and their mouths were full of teeth the size of starship hulls. They look impressive, Jake said, studying the image. What do we know about them? They live in asteroid fields and attack any ships that come too close, Crickstall explained. The Andromedans have lost 3 colonies to these creatures. And they want us to hunt them? They want you to eliminate them. The Andromedans are willing to pay very well for this service. Jake looked at the hologram again. The starworms did look dangerous, but he had learned that most unstoppable predators were just animals that nobody had figured out how to hunt properly. Lisa, what do you think? Are these things related to anything we know? Lisa studied the image with interest. They look like they might be related to earth snakes, just much larger. If that's true, they probably have similar weaknesses. Poor eyesight, dependence on heat sensing, vulnerable spots along their spine. And they probably taste good too, said a new voice from the doorway. Chef Tony Martinez entered the office, wiping his hands on his apron. He had become something of a celebrity in the galaxy, with aliens traveling from distant worlds just to try his predator cuisine. Tony, Jake said, you haven't even seen these creatures yet, and you're already planning dinner. That's my job, Tony said with a grin. Besides, snake meat is delicious when prepared correctly. I bet these starworms will be amazing. Crickstall shook his head in amazement. 6 months ago, the thought of eating a predator would have made me sick. Now I find myself looking forward to trying new species. That's progress, Ryan said. Speaking of which, how's the cookbook coming along? Lisa brightened up. It's almost finished. From Apex to Appetizer, a human guide to eating the food chain should be published next month. We already have pre-orders from 40 different species. The cookbook had been Lisa's idea. After the Void Stalker dinner, she had started documenting Tony's recipes and adding her own scientific notes about predator biology. What started as a simple collection of recipes had turned into a comprehensive guide to hunting, taming, and cooking dangerous creatures. The Galactic Cooking Channel wants to give Tony his own show, Crickstall added. They're calling it Cooking with Predators. Tony's eyes lit up. Really? I've always wanted to be on television. There's just one problem, Jake said. We're getting more requests than we can handle. Every week, another species asks us to deal with their monster problems. It was true. The success on Titan VII had made humans famous throughout the galaxy as the species that could solve predator problems. But there were only so many humans available for these missions. Actually, Ryan said, I might have a solution for that. He pulled up another display, this one showing a large space station under construction. The Galactic Predator Management Academy. We're building it in the Centauri system. The idea is to teach other species how to deal with dangerous creatures. Using human methods, Jake looked at the plans with interest. Who's going to teach the classes? Volunteers from Earth, mainly. Hunters, soldiers, chefs, biologists. People who know how to deal with dangerous animals. Will the other species be able to learn? Crickstall asked. Most of us evolved as prey animals. We don't have the same instincts that humans do. That's the challenge, Lisa said, but we think it's possible. The key is teaching them to think like predators instead of prey. Kate Johnson's voice came over the communication system. Captain Morrison, you have an incoming call from Earth. It's Admiral Peterson. Jake pressed the answer button. Admiral Peterson's face appeared on the screen, looking pleased but tired. Jake, good to see you. How are things in the frontier? Busy, Admiral. We're getting more requests for help than we can handle. That's why I'm calling. The Earth Council has approved the expansion of the Predator Management Program. We're sending 50 more ships and 5,000 volunteers. 5,000? Jake was surprised. That's a lot of people. We're getting a lot of applications. It seems that hunting galactic monsters is a popular career choice these days. It made sense. The Void Stalker hunt had made headlines back on Earth, and the idea of exploring the galaxy while solving monster problems appealed to many humans. There's something else, the Admiral continued. The Galactic Trade Federation has offered humanity full membership. They're also proposing a new law that makes it illegal to abandon planets because of predator problems without consulting human experts first. Jake smiled. So we're becoming the galaxy's official monster hunters? Looks that way. The economic benefits are enormous. Planets that were considered worthless because of dangerous creatures are suddenly valuable again. After the call ended, Jake looked around at his friends and colleagues. In just 6 months, they had gone from a simple first contact mission to becoming the leaders of a new kind of galactic alliance. So what's next? Ryan asked. The starworms of Andromeda, Jake said. And after that, who knows? I hear there's a species in the Magellanic Clouds that's being terrorized by something they call reality eaters. Reality eaters? Tony asked, his eyes lighting up with interest. I wonder what those taste like. Crickstall laughed, a sound that would have been impossible 6 months ago. Captain Morrison, I believe your species has found its calling in the galaxy. Maybe, Jake said, but we're not doing it alone anymore. He gestured to the window where alien ships were docking at the station. Many of them carried students heading to the Predator Management Academy. Others were loaded with equipment for new hunting expeditions. A few were restaurants, coming to learn from Tony's cooking techniques. The galaxy is changing, Lisa observed. Planets that have been empty for centuries are being resettled. Species that have lived in fear for thousands of years are learning to fight back. And it all started with a dinner, Ryan said. Jake thought back to that first meal with the Zephyrian Alliance when the aliens had been horrified to learn that humans were predators. Now, those same aliens were learning to hunt and cook dangerous creatures themselves. Captain, Crickstall said, there is something I have been meaning to tell you. What's that? The Zephyrian Council has decided to erect a monument on Titan 7. It will commemorate the day that the age of running from monsters ended. What's it going to say? Crickstall smiled. Here lies the Void Stalker, apex predator of the galaxy. Defeated by humans who came not as conquerors but as dinner guests looking for the main course. Jake laughed. I like it. Tony nodded approvingly. It's got a nice ring to it. As the day ended, Jake found himself back at the window, watching the ships come and go. A year ago, humanity had been alone in the galaxy, wondering if they would ever meet another intelligent species. Now they were part of a growing alliance of worlds united by a simple idea. No creature, no matter how dangerous, was too scary to hunt, too fierce to tame, or too tough to cook. His communicator beeped. Kate's voice came through with another message. Captain, we have 3 new requests for monster hunting missions. The first is from a mining colony being terrorized by crystal spiders. The second is from a farming world where giant worms are eating entire cities. The third is from a space station that's been taken over by sentient plants. Jake smiled. Tell them we'll be right there. And Kate? Yes, Captain? Asked Tony to start planning menus. I have a feeling we're going to be very busy. Outside the window, the galaxy stretched out in all directions.